Hi, my name is Alex Konieczny. I'm a historic interpreter here at the beautiful Troy Historic Village. In 1955, Troy became a city, and since then it has grown to a bustling, multicultural city full of people from all over the world. This project, Many Stories, One Heritage, seeks to record the authentic stories of first and second generation Asian American immigrants to this city who now call it home. The following interview you're about to hear is one of 12 interviews we've recorded for the Many Stories, One Heritage project.
My grandfather came here in the early 1900s, and he basically worked on the railroad, and he was a very, very industrial man. Because of the fact that he came to this country as an indentured worker, his passage was paid by the railroad, so he had to pay that back in order to leave their employment. So grandfather thought of a way to speed up his departure. He learned how to cook for all the workers. And so he earned extra money after working a hard day's work as a railroad worker. And soon after he paid his wages, he basically went from city to city until he found a city that he was comfortable in. Through his many travel, I know that he'd been through like Indiana and several other states before he finally settled in Michigan. He seemed to like Michigan because some of his village people were already here. At first, he tried his hand as he was coming across the United States, not in restaurant, but in laundry. And he soon discovered that he wasn't good at doing laundry, that he was a much better chef and a restaurant person. So he finally settled in at a restaurant in here.
Is that you have to understand who you are and where you're coming from in order to understand where you're going to go. And just from being able to research different things about Korean culture and heritage, as well as just being able to find my own area, it's really been beneficial for me. Probably the biggest challenge that you'll find is when you're younger. Depending on your location, you'll either cling to one group or you'll cling to the other. And it's hard, it's really difficult if you try to find yourself between both. And I think that the greatest thing that you can have is a family that really accepts you and cares about you. And I think that's why adoption is such a great thing. Because if you were back home in your own country, you wouldn't probably have those opportunities to have a family that loves you. And I think that if I was to give any piece of advice, it would be to strive and just to hold on to those relationships that you'll have with your family, and to not let them go.
I am a first-generation Vietnamese American, so my parents immigrated here from Vietnam, two separate time zones, time dates, whatever you want to call it, early 70s and late 70s. And my dad moved here on a whim because he just hopped on a plane. An American businessman said, you know, stuff's not good, you have an opportunity to go, it's now or never. So he basically took a leap of faith, got on the plane, came to Minnesota, and then migrated down to Texas, whereas my mom was actually one of those boat people that you hear about on the History Channel, where she couldn't handle communism anymore. So she decided to, because her mom passed away, her grandma passed away, she had nothing to live for. She's like, I can't do this. So she basically tidied up everything, hopped on a boat, paid a captain a small fee, and they just floated because the ship actually lost the engine after about 3 days on sea. And they just floated, got picked up by a U.S. tanker, and you know, in the 80s they had me, and here I am today as a Vietnamese American, I guess, professional working in the world. My dad struggled a lot with the language. He learned the English language through TV, actually, through the late 70s, you know, Sanford and Sons and all those shows that decade and generation grew up with. So for him, that was the first barrier. The second barrier was trying to learn his trade and his skill to be useful in the society that he was just introduced to. For him, it was being supported by a church family that basically sponsored him in Texas. So he slowly learned English the wrong way, but he still learned English, and he learned a skill trade where he was being a technician for laser optics. So for 35 plus years, up until he retired not too long ago, he was doing defense work for the military with scopes and stuff, and he was the one managing the machine. Whereas my mom, she actually got picked up by a U.S. tanker, and they had to ship her to Australia because America wasn't taking in any exiles for a while. So Australia did. She lived there for a year. My dad did the paperwork for her to come over, and she basically worked at a school cafeteria as a dishwasher because that was the only trade she kind of knew, and she had broken English, and it was a language barrier as well.
Are there any early memories that stick out to you?
Yes. My mom didn't tell me that I spoke a different language because she wanted to hold on to that culture of keeping your Vietnamese culture very deep and ingrained. She didn't want to lose that because in the end of the day, that's where we come from, and we want to retain that so that we could share it with others. She failed to tell me when I was from, you know, a year old up until I had to go to preschool that we spoke a different language. So I never grasped the concept that when I was watching Sesame Street, that what I was hearing on TV, I couldn't quite understand, even though I understood everything my mom and dad and our family and our neighbors said, until I went to school. And I was on the playground, and I kind of caught a few words English-wise, and I understood the teacher to a certain degree. But when I went and communicated on the playground with my so-called classmates, I'm like, hey, can you push me on a swing? I said it in my language. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. I was like an alien. And they screamed and ran the other way, and I got my feelings hurt at, age 4, age 5. Went home, told my parents. I like, how's your first day of school at preschool, half day? I'm like, it sucked. I didn't like it at all. Why are you making me do this? And she asked why, and I told her why. And she goes, oh yeah, by the way, we don't speak the same language as they do. And you have to learn this new language, and you're going to be bilingual. When I step outside of the Vietnamese community, it's, oh my God, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm free. I'm not compared. I'm not judged. And I'm accepted. And not because they have to. It's because they want to. They want to learn more about my culture. They want to get to know me. And it's not a comparison. It's, hey, we're going to support you because you graduated college. That's a big, big challenge, and you completed it. Whereas going back into the Vietnamese tight-knit community, it's great, you got a BA, okay, now go get your MA. Okay, you got your MA, go get a PhD. It's never enough, but that's because they didn't have much growing up. So they're living technically vicariously through their children, which is nothing wrong, but it does put a lot of pressure on the children that have to balance Eastern and Western. I'm an American. I mean, at the end of the day, no matter how I look, you can't place that on anybody when they're born here. I would say I'm an American with some flair and panache. What that means is I can add some value in a conversation when it comes to culture and globalization and the trends of, you know, an Eastern Hemisphere. I have knowledge. I lived it. I know what it's like to live, you know, put 1 foot in Western, 1 foot in Eastern. So those who struggle with their identity is like, do I call myself Asian, or do I call myself Asian American, or am I full American? Just do you. Just be, what are you comfortable with?
Not many people knock your door here, right? I mean, until unless they call you or you invite them. Back home, it was not like that, you know. Your doors are always open, it's never locked. And anybody can drop in any time without call. And I know my mom used to keep food on the table always, something, so who knows who will come in. So that was a big shock, and in a way that, that's the difference that I noticed. America is a place there where you can be anything, anywhere, anytime you want. Sky is your limit. You have, it's amazing, and I tell every day to my kids that, nothing can stop you if you don't want. If you want to be something, nothing can stop you here. You just have to put your efforts and your plan and your scope on those wishes that you want to follow, or your dreams that you want to follow. That beyond US, there's one thing that, okay, you want to achieve all the dreams in America. America is an icon for the world. It's a great example for the rest of the societies around us. And I feel like since I went to Bangladesh, I realized that we had so much thing to offer to the world. That's another part of our dream. If people want to, and you feel really overwhelmed by serving other communities. Even we are still struggling economically, but we are much better than the rest of the world. If you go around, you'll find by default you're so much blessed in this country. A lot of things, even freedom of speech is not available. Back in our places, some places we struggle to do that. So, in a lot of sense, American dream is a great blessing for not only for Americans but for the rest of the world to follow. I dream big. I know I cannot fulfill all of them, but nobody can stop you from dreaming. Correct? So it comes free. Even a poor guy can dream. So that's the only thing that nature has given you and blessed you, that you can dream anytime, anywhere in your life.
People are Chinese, like I use Chinese represent good people, and American, the bad people. So that's how I grew up. American was an enemy. And then when I was teaching at the university, my English teachers were Americans, and we became friends. And I had English writing class. My English writing class teacher, whatever I wrote, whatever I say I wrote, he always made comments, if you go to the West, you would have social success. And I was like, how do you know? You're not Chinese. I don't know what the West is. I don't think I'll go there. But somehow along the way, the image has changed. America became a rich, free, democratic country. So the image has changed. America is a place everybody want to go. And to a lot of people, they actually made it. And I wasn't sure if I could come here. But with all my friends came here, I thought that if I want to hang out with my friend, I better also give it a try. I moved in the first day or second day, my friend, probably right away, my friend took me to Kroger, I think, or Meijer for grocery shopping, because now I have my own apartment. I have to cook. And when I got into the Meijer or Kroger, I was having a huge culture shock. My friend's wife showing me the drink section, colorful drinks, blue water, green water. Even now, I've never tried that. I have no interest in orange water. And she said, look, all the selections, they're all good. I have no interest in drinking colored water. I remember, the first meal she made for us was huge pepper. They were so huge, they were colorful. There was red, green, and yellow. I've never seen, I only saw green pepper in China, and they were not that big. It was huge and colorful, but they taste horrible. I thought that was the first thing I was dreadful about the food. The food is so bland. I had no taste, but it looked so nice. And all the grocery, I think. And I remember he said, don't ask questions. So you're not allowed to ask questions. Here, the education is that you're encouraged to ask questions. They encourage to ask a lot of questions. If you don't ask questions, then something is not right. it's very, very different. So it's here, I think from my daughter's education, I realized it's more about creativity, thinking, and a well-rounded person, not just academics, not just the math, physics, and the chemistry. It's about reading, writing, critical thinking. It's more well-rounded, and now I think it's easier for me to make decisions if something. I feel more and more American than Chinese, because my all social economic ties are all here in this country, and my daughter was born here, and for her, she's American. She always said she doesn't like China this, doesn't like China that. When I first heard about it, I was very upset when she was little. I said, how can you criticize my country? But now I just keep quiet, because a lot of time I have to agree with her. So, and also for Chinese, I think the most difficult part initially was the food. When I first came here, it was very sad to realize how bad the food was. Took a long time to find some good food. Be adventurous in food and culture. I think you are what you eat. I think when first few years, I couldn't stand fast food, but I have to eat them when I was on road or in a hurry. Took me a long time to get used to eating cheese. And I think when I can eat different variety of food, that just coincides with my open mind.
First of all, I wasn't really immigrated. It's kind of interesting. I came here as a student here. I was in Japan, and I graduated the college in Japan, and then I took an architectural degree. And then with that, I was in architectural design, a building and a housing in Tokyo. I really enjoyed that profession. And then that's part of the reason I came here to the United States to study more in architecture. From time to time, I have a chance to go back to Japan. But sometimes it's scary for me to kind of experience, that type of the very hectic lifestyle. First I missed my life in Japan, but then I think I'm pretty much kind of settled here. Now I like the kind of more like a lifestyle in Michigan. So, good thing and then not so good thing in both ways. Definitely portion of my Japanese, what should I say? I miss Japanese culture. Everything is so convenient. Everything is kind of within a reach. You don't have to really drive too far to get something. Everything is kind of the surrounding you, that type of lifestyle. And then wherever you go, you don't drive. You take bus and then subway and then train, and then you walk every day a lot by changing all these, from train to another subway and then that lifestyle sometimes I miss it. The most part I miss in Japan is the food. The food is so rich, and then it's just you cannot compare. I mean, I was just like that way. I didn't mind spending 14 hours in the office a day, and then not much compensated. And I was so happy because my boss appreciated the quality of my job I did. And then just, when your boss said, you did a good job, whatever, you're a good architect, you're so happy. Not Americans, I know that that's not enough because I have a family, Later, at that time I was single, of course, I didn't have family, I didn't complain, but it changed. Because after living US 10 years, you feel more comfortable understanding the culture and the language. And now I really kind of started thinking about what I can do being a Japanese. I never thought before, but now after you feel more comfortable and you feel you're settled, you start thinking, what can I do as a Japanese here in this Michigan, particular, this community? And then I started thinking there are a lot of families coming from Japan and living in West Bloomfield, the Novi area of Farmington Hills, because of the automotive industry. And then, is there anything that I can do? Because I know they feel the same way when they come to United States. They feel probably they don't belong to this society. Well, the personal life area, probably I cannot do much, but the business side, if they need any help, maybe I can do that. But being an architect, being in the architecture field, almost no chance, because architecture doesn't really intervene with Japanese people. But if you are in automotive, there are a lot of chances that you may be exposed to the Japanese, companies, Japanese people, professionals. Right? So for you to like this country or culture or people, you really must expose yourself to everything here. It's really up to you how much effort you put to adjust yourself to this culture. My case, I didn't have choice. I had to, and it really helped me. So my experience, I got a new job in the automotive area, and I came back from Japan. And then that time, I was much more comfortable to be a kind of liaison, to be a kind of bridge over two different cultures.
Coming from Japan, I first went to Texas, to Dallas Airport, to Dallas. It was my first time that I would fly by myself across the ocean. I mean, I went to mainland Japan and things like that, but I never had gone by myself overseas. So, so I came to the United States. I met my father and my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin at the airport for the first time. We had, communicated over the phone or through letter, but I came. I first landed in LA. And then, of course, my supposition was, hey, everybody in America is very polite and very, full of manners and very gentlemanlike. I didn't find any of that in LA. None whatsoever. I had one huge suitcase because I knew that's the only thing I could carry by myself. And then there was nobody to help me pick up this huge suitcase. So I had to do all that on my own in LA. And then this was in 1982, so over 30 years ago. And then we had to pick up our suitcase, get on the bus, transition to another part of the airport, get off the bus, and then check the suitcase in. And I thought, oh my word, there's nobody that even offers help. So that was my first impression of LA. And then I came to Texas, saw my dad, my aunt, my uncle, and of course this is family now, so it was all different. They were a lot more kind. And then my first impression was, wow, there's the trees, the roads are wide. There's a lot of roads, freeways that are huge. And then cars are bigger, House was beautiful. And the green lush lawn, and the trees were big because I lived in a city in Okinawa. And so we had our greeneries, but it was all buildings, mostly buildings. And then what we saw that was green was across the highway. On the other side of the highway was this barbed wire fence. Beyond the barbed wire fence was the military housing, U.S. military housing, and it was all green, and then had houses here and there and there. That's where we saw our green. On the other side of the fence, we didn't see green, just bushes and trees, but that's about it. Well, we never saw lawn. And so when I came over to Texas and went to Dallas, of course there was lawn, there was yard, We lived right there in Dallas, very nice part of the town. And then, of course, from there, my father lived in a countryside. So we drove forever, felt like almost an hour away to where he is. And then of course, it was like green after green after green, with the cows and horses and everything, which we never saw in Japan, unless you really, really went into the countryside, which I never did because I was a city girl. So that's my impression of, and then of course the high-rise buildings in Dallas and things, but we never really went to downtown that much. I had my homesickness moments, but the biggest one, the worst one, was New Year's. Christmas was great because I've never had such a huge Christmas with my father had a huge family. I had many cousins. I had many aunts and uncles. So they would all get together for Thanksgiving and then again for Christmas. And we only lived about an hour away. I mean, I lived away my college was about an hour away from Dallas. So we would all get together and then meeting all these people, and my grandmother was alive when I first got there, and then she passed away about a month or so after I arrived. And so everybody said it was as if she was waiting for you, Nina, to come, because when she found out that your dad had a daughter in Japan, she could have whipped him for not letting her know that, So anyways, I got to know my grandma just a little bit, and then got to know my family, and then Christmas came, it was great, and then New Year's was the hardest time, because in Texas, we eat black eyed peas for for New Year's Day, and then the men watch the football, and then we just don't do anything. But in Japan, New Year's is the biggest celebration, not Christmas. New Year's is the biggest celebration. We had so many different kinds of food and all that stuff. My mom was always cooking, and I didn't have any of that. And I missed my mom, I missed my cousins, I just missed everybody. So that was the hardest time. But after that slump, I was able to pick back up again and go on, so it's good. But the parents also need to learn. Our children are adjusting much more sometimes than the parents are, because they have to hurdle the gap, in a sense. And I've seen many of my students who had to translate for their parents and things like that. And it's kids grow up faster when they have to live in two cultures at the same time. But for parents, I have a suggestion that get involved in their education when they're young and grow with them, because you'll appreciate America.